Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thank you for taking some time out of your day. Although it's summer break, Ashley. You and I were just talking about this. Maybe you have more time than normal, and you're listening to us as part of your rotation, or if you're carving out time to specifically listen to us. Either way, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Wanted to take this episode because it's summer. Ashley and I wanted to talk about how you stay motivated during summer break, if you have a summer break. We talk a lot towards people transitioning from education. So, usually this is kind of the time of year, and Ashley, you know this, that, when summer break approaches, it's like, all right, now I have X amount of weeks to really make my job search my priority. And I remember doing that over a decade ago when I started looking to make that change, and just remember how like chaotic it was because I was actually still teaching summer school back then too because I wasn't a full-time educator for some of those summers. I was a daily sub, so in the summers you need income, and summer school was my source of it. So I didn't even really have like a full time to sit and search sometimes when it came to it, but. Um, that's kind of the battle, right? Is you have this extra time, and it's typically a time where hiring isn't picking up anyway. So it's tough to still kind of face those rejections because during the school year, you're busy, you're still in the classroom, you try to carve out some times in the evenings or on the weekends, which you need some time for yourself too. So when it came time to pivot to the search, I'm going back to you last summer, how are you keeping yourself focused during the time? Because you have a family you're supporting, so you want to make time for your search and prioritizing your career professional development, but you still have that job of wife and mother too that sometimes is going to pull you away from it. So what were some of the things that you did to kind of keep yourself focused, keep on track with your search while there were other moving pieces in your summer schedule?
So I created a tracker. And because my search was so long and that was my second last summer was my second summer into a search,
Mhm.
I had already knew that summer is slow. So it was, I'll be honest, my second summer in the search, I had, I guess, less anxiety during the summer. If I didn't get anything, I had a better understanding, like, okay, this is the slow season.
Yeah.
Just live your summer. Don't try to hone in and focus too hard on landing a job. If
Mhm.
anything, take this opportunity to perfect your craft, whether that's your resume or your interviewing skills, or also building your connections and your networking. So last summer, I would say that's what I did. I did a lot of coffee chats, a
Okay.
lot of coffee chats. So I used my summer to do a lot of networking just because I understood that summer could be slow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of another good point, and it's a good segue to next question. It's almost like we do this regularly, right?
Hmm.
That you set me up for these builds because networking over the summer is a challenge in and of itself, right? You're trying to maintain connections. Networking events themselves are not as common, and you and I have talked about attending in-person networking events and the benefits of that. There's a whole episode on that, and what you did, how you went about finding the right ones for you, but they're not as common over the summer for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because of vacations or budgetary stuff that you want to allocate your resources, and summer has proven to be not as popular a time to host these as in season or during the winter when people want a reason to get out of the house, and in summer they don't necessarily need that. So networking in general, what are some of the ways that you worked to maintain consistent touch points and connections, with those that you were in communication with? You had a pretty strong core group and a strong network that you were relying upon during your search. And over the summers, how did you go about making sure that you were going to be active and proactive to stay in contact with them and continue bouncing ideas off of each other, things like that?
Okay, so something I remember doing was Um, I at one point in time I was posting daily, and I think I went down, scaled it down to posting just a few times a week.
Mhm.
And I would schedule it out. I would put my thoughts into it. It just wasn't a random like Happy Friday.
Yeah.
It would just literally be a post. And so I would schedule it out, and I would get engagement. From that engagement, usually that's how I built my network from people that commented and engaged on my posts. And then I knew if they were nice enough to take the time out to comment on my post, I would, of course, check out their page. And if I felt like that it was worth reaching out, I would then message them and
Mhm.
then ask, do you have time? I would like to pick your brain. Can we do a coffee chat? So that's how that happened. So yes, coffee chats was very heavy for me, but
Yeah.
how I got there was creating daily posts to engage with other people. And then just quite naturally, I would just automatically just keep in touch with my network that like you and a few others. But that is how someone was like, how do you build your network? Posting.
Yeah.
And then really taking the time out to think about what do you want to post? Like something that you don't want to post just anything and someone is they comment and you don't have anything to engage with. So I would really think about it. Sometimes I would do storytelling to grab their attention. But I focus really hard on posting and then engaging with whomever
Yeah.
um, commented. And then I will then take that on the side and then ask or request, hey, do you have time? I would love to chat. And then
Mhm.
that's how that went.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think something that a lot of people don't really realize is it's not just posting, it's the comments too. I think that there's been a lot of commentary on LinkedIn in terms of it's not just creating your own content, it's engaging in what others have created as well. So did you find that to be the case too? You were getting more results from commenting and engaging with other people's posts, like almost as much as just creating your own stuff, or was it a good fit balance for you?
Yes, so I would comment on other people posts as well. And it's
Yeah.
so funny that you brought that up because I went to a conference, and
Mhm.
that conference, I think I've spoken on this on an episode. That conference, the tickets started off like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And just engaging and commenting on someone else's post is how I landed to someone sponsoring my ticket.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. And
So
I,
yeah, I encourage comment on others.
yeah,
Just don't expect it to come to you. You really
yeah,
have to looking for a job is a job,
yeah,
and you have to
definitely.
put that time in.
I mean, creating content too is a job. I mean, I used to do it a lot more frequently, and I would, have things scheduled out. Obviously, Maximize Monday is an easy Monday post for me, and we don't do it weekly anymore, just because it's a lot to get stuff scheduled. But it was nice to kind of have that. Okay, every Monday, I know I have video content that's going up because it is a challenge sometimes, and you really have to get over that social media mindset, where you have other sites like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, where you're looking for that engagement. And if people aren't liking your posts, it's like, oh God, they hate it, they hate me. And you can't really have that mindset in LinkedIn. Like there's going to be some posts and I mean, you can search through what I put up there. Sometimes I get maybe like 2, 3 likes and it's not a big deal. You have to just kind of shake that you're not looking for engagement in that sense. If people like it, sure, that's great. But if people are commenting, if people are viewing it, if they're messaging you because they saw it, they might not hit the like button first. They might just see your post and immediately go to the messages with you. So it's kind of
Mhm.
keeping that in mind when it comes to creating your content and pushing through, because that is the biggest hurdle with posting more on LinkedIn is being afraid of people not wanting to hear what you have to say. I assure you that there's an audience for you no matter what you're putting out
Mhm.
there.
I agree. Someone was like, I noticed your network is, how did you get there? And I was like, just posting.
Yeah.
And I also had to learn not to put all those hashtags in there because that's how
Yeah.
you get like scam
Mhm.
or bots or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
But it was the posting, and like you said, they might not like it, they
Right.
might not engage in it, but they're reading it and they're somehow connecting with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things about networking, especially for job seekers, is, a lot of times they're prioritizing making connections with people that are in an industry or in a position that they want to be in. And that's going to be an important part of networking, but you can't just be communicating with people that are where you want to be. You also need to build a support circle of people that are where you are currently, because you're going to push each other, challenge each other, motivate each other. So what did that process look like for you, building connections with other job seekers and, again, over the summer trying to find motivation? I'm sure that there's a lot of transitioning educators that have a network of similar transitioning educators and, staying connected over the summer is probably challenging in that regard too. So what was kind of your experience with sharing experiences, sharing interview insight during the summer months?
So, at one point, LinkedIn, I probably made that post. LinkedIn was my favorite
Yeah.
social media at the time. Um, and I would look at it like I would look at Facebook, but it was just replaced. LinkedIn was my focus. And so the algorithm, you would see someone that was a teacher and have moved on. And it was if I will read their post, and if it's something I resonated with, and I would, do a research like, it's a position. I would just reach out to them and
Mhm.
just see, are they willing to talk? What was your experience like? What does it look like? One of those interactions actually landed to someone helping me and guiding me how to create a resume.
Okay.
And once she helped me with that, how to, I guess, put my resume together, that's when I started getting in those. Because I think we talked about it. I was having interviews like back to back to back.
Yeah.
Once she gave me her time and explained it to me and I knew how to flip it based on the position, oh, I was getting hits.
Yeah.
Um, and it all came from she commented on my post and I clicked her, looked at it, noticed she was a teacher that transitioned, and it just piqued my interest. And I reached out to her and we did a lot of coffee chats, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of those things that, it's tough to push yourself, in terms of like what can I offer this person? Because it's,
Mhm.
you don't want to go into every conversation where what am I gaining from this? Especially
Mhm.
in, when you're supporting a fellow job seeker, it needs to be transactional to an extent. There people are willing to help. They're willing to dedicate their time and effort
Mhm.
to supporting others, but they have their own lives, they have their own searches sometimes. So, really trying to find that balance, which I think you did a good job of, in terms of supporting others while supporting yourself and getting stuff from them. But, we talked about how over the summer you feel like you have this extra time and sometimes that comes with pressure of, putting too much on your plate. You want to elevate your job search. And you and I have talked about this before, right? You can't spend 8 hours a day job searching or you'll lose it. You need to do some stuff in the middle and balancing time. So, how did you create a routine from yourself during the summer search? Make time to focus on the search, prioritize your career development, but at the same time prioritize self-care too, right? You're off school for the summer. It is still your summer break, even though you're job seeking. How did you try to find time for yourself in the midst of all of this?
So during that summer, I created a routine. And I had a hobby, which is still my hobby, working out fitness. So I did something that made me happy.
Mhm.
And from staying on LinkedIn all day, and I'm talking all day,
Yeah.
like 6 to 7 hours. That wasn't conducive. Um, so I internalized that and I understood that and I had to make a change to benefit me
Yeah.
mentally, and all that good stuff. So I literally set aside days to do LinkedIn and to submit my resumes,
Mhm.
unless it popped up, because you hear that you get a good chance if you apply like the same day. So if
Yeah.
something popped up that really piqued my interest, okay, then I'll grab my computer and just submit it really quick. But
Mhm.
I had 2 days out of the week, Monday through Friday, to set aside for LinkedIn. The
Yeah.
other days, that's when I would go to the gym, or I would schedule something with girlfriends or my family. But I had to learn, because I felt like I was getting pulled in, and mentally it was sad. It was
Yeah.
overwhelming. It was to a sense, you felt like a failure. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I have all these accolades, these degrees, I know what I can do, I have these skills, and nothing is sticking. Is it me? It really puts you in that space.
Mhm.
And then that's when I just had to change it.
Yeah.
It became a routine. Like 2 days will be for LinkedIn, the other days would be for hobbies and whatever I needed to fill my cup.
Yeah. Now, I mean, talking about hobbies and, networking, obviously, when you talk about networking, you're talking about professional development. So you look for networking events that are going to be business centric or career centric. And that doesn't always have to be the case, right? A lot of people find work because the person that they golf with on Tuesdays knows, of an opening coming up, or you're in a book club and, one of the other members of the book club can, make an introduction for you. You mentioned you're big into fitness. And so, there's a lot of people that do,
Mhm.
they have groups that go to the gym together, or they have a walk or run club or hiking clubs, things like that. Do you or did you find any type of ways to utilize your hobbies and turn that into networking? It doesn't ultimately, I think in any conversation, if I go out for dinner with friends or something, work is usually brought up in some form or fashion. It's not all you're going to talk about, but you still, I mean, when you and I started this call, the first question was how's work going for both of us, right? So, it is still something that comes up. Have you found ways to turn your hobbies into these networking opportunities, or have you seen that work for anyone else in your circle that they were introduced to an opportunity because of someone they knew outside of a professional setting?
So I have two response for this. I'm going to start with a coworker, her experience. She was a teacher of 19 years, and she was, I guess you would say, a non-work centric moment. How she landed that position. She was at church.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were asking, do you have a prayer request? I think she was saying. And she said, she mentioned, she was like, I'm exhausted. I want out. I want to do something different. Um, and she said someone just came to her and I think a few days and was like, I want to answer your prayer request and I want to offer you this job.
Okay. Awesome.
And so for me, I a big one for me would be the gym.
Mhm.
So some of you might know I didn't return to work.
Yeah.
I didn't sign my contract to return. And so I used to go in the afternoons after work, but then I switched to the morning. And so people noticed that. And they'd be like, oh, we noticed you're here in the morning. And they were like, why? And I was like, I didn't return to work, but I'm also actively looking. And so they would tell me, oh, you should go here, or we're hiring, or we have transitioning teachers. So I would say just don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Discuss it, talk about it, be open.
Hmm.
Um, because I don't think she would have landed her position if she just didn't take that leap of faith literally
Yeah.
and say that out loud.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I mean, for me, my first two positions in recruiting were because of connections I had outside of, work. In college, one of my roommates was on the volleyball club and a member of his team. He and I became really good friends. He's the one that introduced me to my first opportunity in recruiting, years after we graduated. So, don't discount how the connections you already have, how much of an impact that they can make for that too. But
I agree.
the simplest things like joining a book club, joining a yoga club. This is not the only podcast I do. I have a wrestling one and a Disney centric one, and my friends on the wrestling podcast have helped each other find positions as well. So these are things that doors can be opened up from any avenue. So don't think that just one direction is going to be the area you need to focus on.
Hmm. Okay.
And so, last question before we wrap it up for the weekend is just on utilizing network, to build in LinkedIn. That LinkedIn offers a lot of opportunities to network. It's not just, commenting, posting, messaging. There are different pages and groups. I don't know how involved you are. I've seen benefits of them. It just kind of depends on how active group members are. But have you been a part of any groups, any discussions on LinkedIn that you feel or have been beneficial that you would kind of give a shout out to, and how to maintain those connections? Just in general, once you found your role, you can't just kind of leave the discussion, right? You still have to be involved, engaged. You and I is a good example of this. You found your role, and we still talk regularly. So, how do you try to push yourself to maintain connections now that you're in your current role?
You know what? That's an area that needs improvement because I notice I do not get on LinkedIn like I should, or and it's because I'm in a new role. But
Yeah.
it is definitely an area that I need to improve. That is a area that I just need to work on. I need to improve. Um, I want to do better. I just need to figure out a great balance to improve that. And I'm glad that you brought it up because I was looking at it and I was like, how do I answer this one? And I have the notifications coming to my phone. And so when I see a message, let's say from someone that's reaching out and I can briefly see it, and if they're trying to connect because they've seen or noticed that I've made the transition, I do try to respond. But
Mhm.
as far as how I used to be on there for hours and hours when I was looking for a job, I do not have
Yeah.
I have not that I do not have the time. I have not balanced and found the time
Yeah.
to dedicate that and give back because I think that is very important.
Mhm.
But I do try to, like I said, if I see the notification come through, I do try to respond. There has been some people that reached out and it's to be honest, it's just a quick response.
Yeah.
They're just asking. Someone asked for a coffee chat not too long ago and we did it. It was brief. Um but as far as making the posts, because that's what I said earlier, I used to schedule my posts. I was on there. I don't do that. I think I've made maybe two posts since I started my new career. And I think it was just an update after 90 days and an
Yeah.
update after 30 days or 60 days. So it is something that I feel like I need to improve. It's definitely an area that needs improvement. But yeah, I gotta figure it out. I maybe that's something that needs to be offline. And how do you do it? Because you do it so well. And I know that I was talking to Nadia and she was like, I'm going to get back to it. I just think sometimes you just, especially when you're in a new position,
Yeah.
new role, I think you're so engulfed in that you
Mhm.
just don't think. And you're still trying to balance your regular world.
Right.
Um, and unfortunately, it's not good to put on the back burner, but it kind of is on the back burner, which is
Mhm.
not right because really that's how, well, for me, LinkedIn is what helped me. That's where the posting was for my position. That's where I built all these connections and I networked. So I do feel like I need to give back
Yeah.
and be more present. Maybe I need to go back like how I used to schedule those 2 days Maybe I just need to sit out. And it doesn't have to be every week. And that's
Right.
what people have to, it does not have to be every, it could be bi-weekly or monthly. You just have
Mhm.
to find what really works for you. And when I say works for you, like not overwhelming, like, oh, I can fit this in. No, does it actually work for your schedule?
Yeah.
And so that's something I do want to work on.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because, m my profession, I need to be on LinkedIn pretty regularly. I'm looking
Mhm.
for candidates. Our positions are posted there. So it makes sense that I'm on there pretty regularly. Not all jobs require that type of frequency in that presence. So, that's where you kind of have to challenge yourself sometimes. But that being said, I try to make it a point for myself too. I'm really good at responding to people, but I'm not
Mhm.
the best when it comes to like initiating the conversations and maintaining touch points too. So there's a handful that I make it a point to, like you and Kasha, other people that contribute to the show regularly. I still try to have like check-ins beyond that, so we're not always just talking about the show notes, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean it's a challenge for everyone, especially during the summer where there's trips planned, vacations. When you
Yeah.
have kids that get involved in sports, my daughter does soccer and t-ball now, so like your time gets even more constrained from there. So definitely a good motivator and challenge to everyone, to be
Mhm.
more present, be more engaged. But that's it for us this episode. A lot of, focus on motivation during the summer. So, if you're listening, you're watching, you have questions, you want to network, you want to be in a book club, let's reach out. Feel free. I'm always open to explore. But, if there's anything that we can do to help you in your search, always happy to do that. Otherwise, we will see you in a couple weeks for the next episode.
Yes.